every time I like have struggled over this past year, especially, I come back to Maitri and like our mission that no one should have to suffer or die alone. And it's like, that's why we're here, right? Is to be a beacon and a place of community for people that have nowhere else to go.
That was Maitri Compassionate Care's Development Director, Tomas Moreno. I'm Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco. In this podcast, Tomas wraps up his moving to the Bay Area story, which coincides with his discovery of what he wanted to do with his life. That purpose, serving folks in need, lined up perfectly for him with a strange place he had noticed while waiting for the En Judah at church several times. Of course, that strange place is Maitri, where Tomas and Rusty Smith work these days. They share the history of this nonprofit, founded in the Castro by Issan Dorsey back in 1987. They wrap up this episode with their thoughts on San Francisco as we emerge from the pandemic. Here is Tomas, followed by Rusty.
Why didn't I think of this sooner? Like anytime I would visit family during the holidays or something like that, I would always make sure I had like a day or two in San Francisco just to like explore and have fun and enjoy the city. And of course, I ended up getting a job here and I immediately set out in roots. I moved into Berkeley and it was full-time thing. This is what I'm doing. I have moved to the Bay Area by, I think, August of that year. So it was like 2 months later and I was like in it, doing the Bay Area, doing this thing. And
you're coming up on 10 years this August, right?
Yeah, which is just wild.
Free congratulations.
Thank you. So when I moved to San Francisco, it was really just about trying to figure out like what area and how I wanted to do things, right? I moved here just to like get a job and like set down roots someplace and figure things out. And kind of as the years went by and everything, I realized that what I have always wanted and needed kind of to do has been to help people in need. Growing up, my mom was a Rotarian, and she was a high school teacher, or still is a high school teacher. She'll kill me if I say that she was a high school teacher.
Okay.
She is a high school teacher for 3 more weeks because she is retiring.
Another congratulations on the Moreno family.
And she's a high school teacher for special needs kids. Awesome. And all growing up, like, her thing was always just that you have it so much better than so many other people, and that means that it's on you to give back and help people.
Right on.
And it was like, yeah, all of that just kind of clicked after a year or so, where I was like, oh, that's what like I need to do. Like that's my job. Like, right? And so then it was how do I do this? Like, I didn't know that I wanted or could be that kind of frontline person providing direct care to people. And so it really became that, I can write well, I can communicate and like tell people things, I can get people excited about things. Why don't I do that, but for like causes and helping people? And so once all of that clicked, which, I was in my 20s, and so it was like, oh, duh, like these are like realizations that like everybody gets of like figuring out what and how to like craft and figure out where you're going to be working and
where
like,
you fit in the world.
Yeah, where you fit in the world.
Yeah.
Where I was like, oh, right. Realized that development and fundraising was a perfect pathway for me, and that it was really about always making sure that I was focused in around marginalized communities and people who needed the most help.
I'm going to guess that's what drew you here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
just wild guess.
So yeah, for me, it was really, again, I think that was about 2015 or so, kind of peak tech buses are ruining everything. We don't have enough housing.
Lots of displacement.
Yeah, lots of displacement. And you were seeing people protest. And actually, I remember this really distinctly. People protesting Google buses at the MacArthur BART station. And I went and was applying for a nonprofit that was 3-4 blocks away that served homeless seniors who were being displaced from West Oakland. And I was just like, the two worlds that I'm seeing right here, just in this like 3-block area, is insanity. Like, this is not how it should be. Like, y'all need to be talking to each other and realizing that, like, if we can get even just 3% of your money, we can fix kind of everything. And you don't know the lives of the people that are really just completely being destroyed because you want to move like that much closer to a BART station, right? And so that was really crazy eye-opening for me. And so I started working there. So that's St. Mary's Center in West Oakland. And
is that a Catholic charity as well?
No, so St. Mary's Center. So they originally were founded out of St. Mary's Parish, which was on 7th Street in Oakland. And out of that became kind of an outreach effort after the big earthquake to help people in West Oakland, and specifically help seniors and preschoolers. And from there, they became their own independent nonprofit, but to kind of keep a hold of their roots, they still have the name St. Mary's Center. But yeah, so it's a non-denominational nonprofit, and it's focused around helping homeless seniors and preschoolers in West Oakland. And there I realized that, you know, this is what I want to do. This is what I can do to help people and just help people connect and find the really cool shit happening in their neighborhoods. And that's what I always keep coming back to, of wherever I move or anything like that, I just want to know what is happening that's helping people in my neighborhood.
What's the good stuff?
Yeah.
And let's let everyone know about the good stuff.
Exactly. And so when I found out about Maitri, I was just like, there is no place called Maitri like you're describing. Like, this is not a nonprofit in San Francisco, because I would have heard about it. Right. It is on Dubois Church, and I have been there. Like, I pulled up the Google Maps and everything, and it was like, I've been on that train, like, right there in front for hours, just waiting. Like, I've been on the Anjuta waiting in front of where this Maitri place is supposed to be. Like, there's no way.
Supposed to be, right.
Yeah.
Supposed to be. Right. Yes.
And it was just like, you are wrong. Like, this is a scam nonprofit, and how dare you? And I went to visit one of my friends, who lived in the Haight, and like I was like, oh, I can just like walk by that Maitri place and see like if it is actually real.
What the front is.
Yeah. And so I like walked by and I was like, okay, so the sign is here. Like, it look, maybe it's not a scam. Like, maybe this is actually a nonprofit that helps people. And so, you know, I applied and work here and love it.
When was that?
So that would have been 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to hear a little of the history before you all both came to the place. Whoever wants to take that, and then we'll talk about what you're doing now. I want to hear a little bit about what you're doing or how you've navigated COVID, and then we'll end on a more hopeful note. I promise.
Awesome. Cool.
But yeah.
Cool. So Maitri, we were founded in 1987 when Issan Dorsey, who is a drag queen / Zen Buddhist monk, opened the doors of the Hartford Street Zen Center to a homeless student who was dying of AIDS.
Okay, here in the city.
And yeah, since then, Maitri has become a 15-bed model medical facility that serves people living with HIV and AIDS. Since 1987, obviously, HIV is no longer a death sentence. We still provide hospice care because that is what we started as, and that's what people deserve, is hospice care that really is compassionate at its core. But for the most part, people come here for what we call short-term respite and restorative care.
Okay.
So what that is just short-term medical care because something has happened in their lives. It tends to be related to their HIV or AIDS diagnosis. However, it can be a bunch of different things, right? People are living much longer with HIV. And so you have a lot of older people who have complicated medical issues that they're facing. And, one fall can land you in the hospital. And instead of being in the hospital, you can come here to Maitri.
How do folks, is it apply, or how do you take people in? How do people actively get in here, I guess?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. And I think Tomas is also talking about the other disease that haunts our community, and that's poverty. So if you are poor and you have HIV and AIDS, you end up at our doors. And they come to us actually all different kinds of way. We get lots of people from hospitals that, where do they send you? Where do you live? How do you take care of yourself? The other part of that that's a little bit unique is we're no longer just a place for people to die, but for people who are struggling with poverty and they want to return to their community and they're poor. So it's sort of that combination of where do they come from? They come from the hospital, they come from the streets, they come from our community. But the biggest part is really people living with AIDS, not dying with AIDS. Probably in those percentages, it might be as small, and I don't mean to minimize this, but it might only be maybe 10% of those who live with AIDS that actually are actively dying.
Okay.
The rest of the people are really just trying to make the best of their lives.
Well, and that's a nice contrast to what you were saying before, which
Yeah.
was in the 80s in Houston, everyone was dying, I think was your
Yep.
exact.
Everyone
was dying. So you said you moved to San Francisco fully
Yep.
4 years ago?
Yeah.
When did you get involved with Maitri?
Well, I came to Maitri, again, to help rebuild Maitri. I think as an organization, it might be characterized as it was struggling. But I also think most of the organizations, even now, that are working with people that are living and trying to survive with HIV are struggling. This is a struggling community. Very few people are running to help right now people with HIV and AIDS. And I want to say this one other part. Poverty can sort of is an ongoing struggle in San Francisco. Right? Nobody is really flourishing here. Most of us are trying to just do the best we can. If I wasn't married to a husband who makes a lot more money than I do,
Okay.
I couldn't live here.
Right.
No, I really couldn't.
Right.
And I think if you have a chronic illness that is like robbing you of options and opportunities, how do you get by?
Yeah.
That's just real.
Yeah, that term or phrase, income gap,
Ugh.
keeps coming in my mind. It's like we throw it out and we don't really think about.
Right.
I mean, we think about fixing it, but we don't think about the now of it.
Yeah.
Right.
The extremes.
Right.
And San Francisco is sadly emblematic
Right.
of that.
No, exactly. I mean, one of the things that I constantly have to wrap my head around is that extreme gap in wealth and in income that we have here. I mean, the majority of the people that Maitri serves today either have no income when they come here, are on general assistance, which you have to pay back, and really is nothing, or they're on SSI, and I mean, SSI I think is just over $1,000 a month.
Right.
I mean, like
that could do you well in the places we talked about earlier that none of us want to
Right.
live.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, but can it even do that, really?
Right.
I mean, right?
Right. Healthcare.
I mean, that's what gets me every time is that the people that we serve, they truly have nowhere else to go.
Right.
And even then, they deserve dignity, right? I don't think anyone deserves to be on the street or deserves to, as we've seen all over the past year, right, die alone. We've seen that with COVID, and it's just every time I have struggled over this past year, especially, I come back to Maitri and our mission that no one should have to suffer or die alone. And it's that's why we're here, right? Is to be a beacon and a place of community for people that have nowhere else to go.
I love it, and that was an excellent segue. I think. Can we talk about how you guys have? Sorry, you all.
Yeah.
I assume there are more than just you two.
Yeah. Right.
Here with Maitri, how, and if you want to do it kind of in storytelling form, let's talk about last February, March when we first started hearing about it, and then going into.
Right.
How was it?
Wow. So this has been a tough year.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because how do you tell the story of people who have no place to go and a pandemic, and they're trying to make sense of a life that used to be not okay and still is not okay, and yet now there's even less. Right? It's sort of like this, the perfect storm. Well, no, actually, this is the perfect storm.
Right.
And I just want to share just a quick story that just happened this last 2 weeks ago. And someone who is living in their car and they're dealing with being transgender. And they want to have that last surgery. But I've got no money. I've got no insurance. I've got no place else. And I want to talk about this one person because, and I am so grateful that I get to work where I work and do what I do. This is a person that had done all of the hard work to be their true selves. And at the very last stage, living in their car, couldn't quite get it done because you have to be able to live somewhere.
That perfect storm hit this person.
That's it.
And a lot of it is economic.
It's all economic.
Yeah.
I mean, in San Francisco, if everything works just perfectly, you can barely live.
Right.
Right? And then you can't get surgery to be fully who you are. And we got that phone call just a couple of weeks ago. And I want to take a quick pause because that person just today had surgery.
Awesome.
Right. And
y'all took them in, I assume.
they're here.
Yes.
Awesome.
This is it. This is their new home
Yes.
for a month. No cost to them.
Amazing.
No cost to them.
More congratulations.
Right?
I love it.
Well, and I just have to say this because when this person showed up at our door after sort of looking, and that's what I just want a quick pause. San Francisco is one of those places where you can find people that, they're not going to let you just not make it.
Yeah.
And they were working with the Office of Transgender Initiatives, and they reached out to us, and I just love this. We are no, we're going to make this happen. We're going to work with you. No matter what else, we're going to work with you. We're going to make sure this is going to be all right. And so today they're having their surgery, and this afternoon they're coming back to sort of make sure that they can check in with, they're going to finish probably close to 7 days with UCSF. And then they're going to come here for a full month to get loved and cared for. But those are just miracles. They are. To be able to come to this place and
Absolutely.
get this kind of care.
I love it. Did you all take in any COVID patients, or is that?
Well,
Can you talk about it, or?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
so I don't think we had any COVID patients that we took in, but we had to continue providing care
Right.
during this past year, right? We are serving people who have nowhere else to go. And it has been hard.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say, it was just hard on staff or anything. It was hard on staff, but it was hard on the people we serve, our residents,
Resident
right?
care.
Because
Right.
a lot of the people that we serve, they were alive, they were here during the height of the AIDS epidemic in the 80s. And there they were seeing people die on the streets. And now we come to COVID and they're hearing that people are dying on the streets. They're fearful that they can't go out, they can't touch anything, they can't be with anyone without getting it. And I have a compromised immune system and it was everything on top of them.
Triggering for a lot of folks.
I mean,
who
absolutely.
experience AIDS, I would think.
Triggering for all of us.
Yeah, sure.
Right? I mean,
Sure.
So many of my friends were complaining that they had to stay home. No. You see, here, Tomas had to be here every day.
Yeah.
All of our staff, 32 staff, had to be here every day to make sure that people would be safe. There was no way of isolating at home and staying safe every day. And I want to say, I think probably Tomas would say this, we're so proud of the fact that our residents are still alive.
Yeah.
That Tomas, he did bingo. I did bingo.
Yes.
We don't love bingo, but we were here for a bingo.
Yeah. Right. I mean, we needed to make sure that our patients received the care that they deserved this last year. Even with everything else crazy happening outside our doors, Maitri was going to be here, and we were going to be a place of solace and of health for our residents. So that meant that people like me, who I don't do frontline work because I just don't have the mental wherewithal to keep that up and do it and be smiley and happy. And I played bingo because we needed to make sure that we had activities happening on site here for people, because you can't ask 15 people to just stay home without anything going on, right? And especially because we know, Maitri has had a weekly bingo game since forever. And we have residents who they have come back to Maitri after recovering their health, being back in the community, and needing more help. And so they come back to Maitri and they still rave about bingo. And so during this last year, we had to keep that going, right? It is a Maitri tradition, and we were going to do it. And our residents, they told Rusty and I to our faces that this is not how you play bingo. This is not right. And I can't wait until volunteers come back.
Doing it wrong.
And we were just
suck.
yeah.
We suck.
We would talk the next day and be like, yeah.
No, we're trying.
No, we're everyone's disappointment. No, we really are.
You didn't even give me E for effort.
Oh, no. But, we would tell each other that, I can't wait until volunteers come back either.
The real bingo master.
The real
Yes.
But
volunteers.
we couldn't disturb that for our residents, right? They needed some sense of normalcy. Everyone needed that this past year.
Yeah.
And if that's all we could give them, me as a grant writer and fundraiser was to make sure that they had their weekly bingo games and they could yell at me under their breath, which was not really under their breath because they are hard of hearing, they're going to do it. And that's what you need. And that's okay. Because that's what you deserve, is this pillar for you. We need to be here. We need to continue the care that you deserve.
I totally forgot to ask where the name comes from. Maitri.
Yeah, so Maitri is the Sanskrit word for compassionate friendship.
It's that simple, that straightforward.
It's that simple.
And did that come from the founder?
Yes.
Whose name
Yeah,
I'm forgetting?
Issan Dorsey.
What are your feelings, thoughts, guesses about San Francisco as it emerges out of this strange time that we're in.
Well, these are kind of weird times. And I think some of what we've learned in these weird times is that there's just not enough, but there's hope. And that's what I think I carry with this, because did this kill us? No. Are people of color going to be okay? Yeah. But we're not going to be okay unless we are okay, and unless someone steps up, unless the door remains open, unless we get it through our heads that we can't shoot each other, and we just we got to do something. And I think one of the legacies of AIDS grew from places that also people that are gay and different, we will not surrender. I think that's part of what we've learned.
Yeah.
And communities coming together.
That's it, for real, for real.
Our theme for this, for our show, we work in seasons that are roughly a year, and we do a theme every season. Our theme this year, because we just kicked off in early March, was "We're Still Here."
Yeah, that's powerful.
What we settled on. Do you guys want to riff off of that?
Yeah.
That idea?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things for me that has been really telling as we get back into this reopening stage of COVID and everything was there was a Wednesday, which was our bingo day, and I was leaving work just a little bit before the bingo game started, and we were able to get a group of volunteers vaccinated, and this was going to be the first bingo game that they were hosting. And so that meant that I didn't have to do bingo.
I was going to say, how intentional was it that you left right before?
Yes. And I was walking along the DeVos bike path right behind Safeway here, and I saw two of our residents making their way down to come play bingo, or rather, I guess, former residents come down to play bingo because they are living right now at open house down the street, and we invite all of our residents to come back to play bingo and for other games and for just community, because we want to make sure that they aren't alone, that they still have a space that they can come back to. And I saw them coming, and I was just like, it has been a very long day, and I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to deal with this. Maybe they won't notice me. And as soon as we were close enough that they could recognize me, they waved me down. They wanted to talk, and I was like, okay. Took out my headphones and was like, yeah, let's talk. And they were just like, we are so excited to be back for bingo. You're leaving Maitri? What? You should come play. And I was like, no, I have to go home. But it was that moment that I was like, oh, things are coming back together. And Maitri is still going to be this place where these two old gay men can come back to. And they have a weekly bingo appointment. They have friends that they're going to see. They're going to check back in with people. They're excited because Maitri is here for them. And it just that completely changed my mood and made my day. I was I'm so glad that they waved me down, and I'm so glad that I had that moment, because we need to be here.
That was Tomas Moreno and Rusty Smith. On the next episode of Storied San Francisco, you'll get to know KPOO DJ and Church of Coltrane minister, Wanika King-Stevens. Episode 10 drops next Tuesday. Music for the podcast was produced, performed, and curated by Otis McDonald. Original photography is by Michelle Kilfeather. Aaron Lim of Bitch Talk Podcast is our contributing producer. And the show is produced and hosted by me, Jeff Hunt. Now in our 4th season, we have more than 150 episodes available on our website, storiedsf.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you can, Subscribe, rate, and review our show so we can reach even more folks. And if you'd like to drop us an old-fashioned email, we'd love that. The address is storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.
This podcast is a proud member of the BFF.FM podcast network. Learn more at podcasts.bff.fm.
BFF.FM, best frequencies forever.